I'm excited to have this amazing conversation today with Melat Kiros, who is running for Congress in Colorado. We'll talk a little bit more about her race specifically, but these conversations are important because we all recognize that we're facing fascism in this country. And it's critical that we also recognize that while Republicans are leading the charge in fascism, there's enough corporate and centrist Democrats who have basically kind of sat by the wayside, refused to fight, and refused to step aside when they didn't know what they were doing. We're seeing that with the Chuck Schumers and Hakeem Jeffries of the world. Maylad is someone who I've connected with for earlier this year. I've been following her campaign very closely for a while, and I have been nothing but impressed with her leadership, her compassion, and her conviction. And I'm excited to share her campaign with you. And I am going to ask each of you to do what I've done, and that's donate to her campaign. I'm going to donate again after this call as well because she's not taking corporate PAC money. And I'm going to ask you all to help fill that gap. Maylad, thank you for being with us for a few minutes today.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
So let's give us a skinny. These folks watching care about politics, they care about human rights, but they've never met you before. What should they know about you and your campaign?
Yeah, I'm running in Colorado's first district. So that's pretty much all of Denver, the youngest district in the country, one of the bluest districts in the country. And we currently have an incumbent who's been in office for 30 years. She's taken millions of dollars in corporate PAC money from big pharma, big energy, defense contractors, including APAC. And so ultimately, for me, this was a conversation with folks in the district about what do we deserve in representation. We are an incredibly progressive city. We have universal pre-K, we have term limits, we have that small donor matching program that helped elevate Zohran Mamdani to a win in New York. We should have someone who represents those values in Congress as well and can also speak to the struggles that people are facing today. When you've been in office for 30 years, you cannot understand the affordability crisis and the way that working people in this country do today. I'm a recovering lawyer, I'm a PhD student, I'm a barista. I have pretty much lived in every different bracket of the working class, and I'm witnessing, especially someone who's 28 years old, just facing the barrel of a future where we rent everything,
Yeah.
we own nothing, and we're going to work until we die because all of the social programs that are meant to cushion us at retirement are probably going to run out by the time we come of age. And no one is actually doing the work to protect those programs and uplift the working class. So that's what this campaign is about. It's about returning dignity to working people in Denver and returning, accountability and removing corruption within the Democratic Party and government in general.
We've got over 100 people watching, which is amazing. I want to double down on a really important point. You made a lot of really great points. There's one I really want folks to understand about why your race is so important. Because Denver, the first district of Colorado, currently has a Democrat. And there's
Mhm.
folks like, a Democrat is a Democrat, vote blue no matter who. Well, that's a bunch of crap because you just described somebody who very well could be and probably is a Republican for all intents and purposes. Someone who takes APEC money, takes corporate money, big health, big pharma, big energy money, all these institutions that are exploiting people right now, she
Mhm.
is being funded by them. And the question really is, how do you expect someone who is being funded by the very institutions exploiting us to then fight for us? You don't. You replace that kind of a person. Right now, I've watched closely your campaign. One of the things you talked about just relentlessly is the affordability crisis. And I don't think folks who are of means really understand how bad it has gotten. And I want to merge that with the whole wait your turn politics because the two are very, very connected. The very same people who have caused the affordability crisis are also now saying, hey, I've only been here 30 years. Wait your turn until I retire or die, and then you can step in. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Ultimately, the biggest connection here that we need to be paying attention to is the relationship that they have with their corporate donors who are also directly responsible for this affordability crisis, right? So Diana DeGette, the bill that she touts as her crowning achievement is a bill that Elizabeth Warren literally said is the exact reason why the American people believe that corporate donors are the ones that are actually calling the shots. It was a massive giveaway to the pharmaceutical industry, and her largest donor base is big pharma. And so when we're
That's
talking
right.
about someone who claims that, I'll have seniority, you should put me back into Congress. That 30 years is going to be all the experience that we need to right this ship. 30 years is what got us here in the first place. How can we trust someone who has taken the money from the very corporations that are benefiting from the healthcare crisis that we're seeing in this country
Yes.
to be the one to fix it? That's just absurd. And so when we're talking about what is it that we need to see change, I'm telling everyone the new litmus test has to be no more votes for corporate shills. They are
Yes.
the ones who are choosing to support and write the bills in favor of their donors and not their voters. And the only way we can ensure that there's true accountability is to make sure that it's small dollar donors and the everyday people that are actually supporting these candidates so that when they get into Congress, the people that are going to get them reelected are the same ones that are actually going to be affected by their policies.
It's offensive when I hear people say that, "Well, yeah, I've been around for 30 years. Just give me one more term." And it's almost like someone who's suffering from addiction who says, "Just one more hit. That's all I need, and then I'm
Hmm.
good." And that's
Hmm.
really what it's become. And I feel like they're questioning our intelligence because we see what's happening around us. I mean, 1995 to 2025, 3 decades is just absurd. Now,
Hmm.
let's talk a little bit more about kind of your personal role and your personal journey, your personal story to this, because nobody in their right mind gets up one day and says, you know what, I'm going to turn my life upside down and run for Congress. What's your superhero origin story? How are we finding you here in this moment where you're like, this is where I need to be?
Yeah, I think it's one that's going to resonate with a lot of younger people. And it starts in a place where I was in law school and learning the intimate pieces of our justice system and realizing just how broken it is, learning about our government and understanding that laws were designed to protect corporations and not to protect everyday working people. And I gave up. I got into law school believing I wanted to go into public service. I wanted to do good with my degree. And I really just got taken away from that path because I sincerely believed that there was nothing that any one individual person could do. And I decided, I'm just going to go to a big law firm, pay off my loans, take care of my parents, and, just take care of my family and call it a day because the world was burning. The government was never going to be working for working people, and that was it. And it wasn't until I was working in New York as an attorney after the law students that began protesting on their campuses for Israel's genocidal response to what happened on October 7th and protesting what very clearly were human rights
Yeah.
atrocities and war crimes. And they were getting fired. They were losing their job offers from law firms, and there were law firm partners that were calling out law school deans, telling them to get it together. And I wrote an article saying that I disagreed with that, that I believed one, that they had the right to freedom of speech and that they had every right to speak to this geopolitical question and the human rights crimes that we were seeing. And on top of that, that there was a disconnect between the response to students that were speaking on behalf of Israel and the students that were speaking on behalf of Palestine. And as a Tigrayan from Ethiopia, where there was a genocide and war crimes that happened just a few years ago that I
Yes.
protested for myself, it was incredibly difficult to see students that were engaging in the same thing that I did to speak out on behalf of human rights getting fired for it. And so I wrote that article. My firm asked me to take it down. I said no, and I was fired within like 24 hours. And it really kind of shook me to my core. But truly, the thing that reminded me about what it is that I'm meant to do, and that is public service, was getting all of these messages from attorneys all across the world. And there was one message that I got from a woman who had just found out she was pregnant. She hadn't even told some of her family. She hadn't told her job. And she said, I really wish I could have posted something or said something about what's happening in Palestine, but I can't risk losing my health insurance. I have a baby on the way.
Yeah.
And I learned very, very quickly that this is not a free market. This is a coercive market. There are
Exactly.
folks that believe that there are things that they want to say. They want to talk about the genocide in Palestine. They want to talk about the fascism we're seeing in our government, but they can't lose their health insurance. They can't lose their
Right.
livelihood. And especially in this affordability crisis where we've created an economy where people are just living paycheck to paycheck. They can't save up for a rainy day. They can't save up for retirement. This is a coercive market. with all the free time that I had after getting fired, I decided to try and figure out what I wanted to do next. I read and tried to learn about what policies are really driving this issue. And ultimately, it became very clear that it's the money in politics, right? All the politicians that are refusing to speak about what's happening in Palestine are funded by AIPAC. All the politicians that refuse to pass Medicare for all are funded by these big pharmaceutical companies and companies. It's all tied together, right? Whether we're talking about the environment, the economy, social justice issues, we have to root out that corruption. And I just looked here in my own backyard. I grew up here in Denver. I moved back home as soon as I got fired. And I saw that my own representative had been taking this money for decades and has done nothing to progress policies that would actually support working people. And I decided to step up because we need younger people in Congress. We need people that are actually backed by working people, not
Yes.
corporate donors, and are willing to stand up for human rights. So that's what we did.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. I know it can be painful to revisit these moments where your livelihood is stripped away for the crime of speaking your conscience. And I commend you on being able to tell your story because we need to tell these stories and people need to understand. And I just put your donation link in the chat, and I encourage folks. It's not enough to simply say you support these policies. It's not enough to simply vote on election day. If you have the means, contribute. And if it's a $5 contribution, and you skip coffee this week, please make that happen because I assure you, this is the path forward. Every dollar we spend is a reflection of the kind of future we want. And I'm going to read off a couple of stats that describe Melat's opponent: $5 million in corporate PAC money, voted to censure Representative Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib when Republicans attacked them with an Islamophobic censure, voted with unconditional military aid for the Israeli government, even as they're being accused by the ICC and the ICJ of committing genocide and war crimes, even as they're being accused by Israeli human rights organizations of committing war crimes and genocide. Missed votes on corporate transparency and on basic broadband access. So it's not even a matter of these easy wins like not supporting genocide. She's just being cruel with working people locally as well. How can you not support transparency and broadband? For God's sake, people need internet access for basic human dignity. And so one of the questions I'm getting in the chats, Melat, is who is supporting you? Somebody asked, are you being supported by the DNC or are you being supported by folks like the Working Families Party? Or let's talk about some of the organizations who have endorsed you. And because I think people need to understand that you're not just going solo. You've got a great coalition around you as well.
Yeah, the DNC is not knocking on my door. I wouldn't open it even if they were. I'm challenging the 30-year incumbent in our district. I am looking for the support of the Working Families Party. They do incredible work here in Colorado. I'm working with the Denver DSA. Chapter here as well. They are also wonderful people. I have some friends there too. But I am really honored and excited to share that I have been endorsed by Justice Democrats. These are the same folks that discovered AOC and led her campaign. They backed Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, Summer Lee, Jamal Bowman, folks that I really genuinely admire and trust and believe are fighting for working people and to root out the corruption that's in government. And so we do have a really strong coalition that we're building here in Colorado. I'm looking forward to sharing some more endorsements that are going to be coming down the line as well. I sincerely believe that the people that I have backing me in my corner are a reflection of my own values. And so that is what I'm seeking when I'm reaching out to these organizations. But just like you said, Kasim, we have a really strong coalition here in Colorado and here in Denver that are trying to turn the tide, take back our party, and really focus on the affordability crisis, root out the corruption, and make sure that we're standing up for basic human rights and not allowing our tax dollars to fund a genocide.
And this is what I'm. And by the way, folks in the comments are already saying they're donating, so that's awesome. Let's keep these donations coming in, and follow Milat on social media, boost her content. Look, she's going to be facing an onslaught of attacks from the corporate Democrat who's currently in office. Let's talk about your timeline and strategy. When is the primary? When does voting begin? Kind of like help frame us where we are in the current campaign right now.
Yeah, yeah. So our primary is June 30th. And Colorado's interesting because we have a mixed primary system here. So we do still have caucuses, which, it's a dying process, but
Yeah.
it's one that I love that we have a mixed process, right? Because we have the petition process where you get 1,500 signatures that still forces you to go out, meet the people in the district, share your message, and get support in an organic way. And the caucus process is largely, precinct organizers within the party that get to hear out each candidate and vote to see who they want on the ballot. Both are paths to get onto the ballot in June. And I appreciate both of those processes because, there are folks that are working within this party who want to see change, right? They want to see leaders that actually reflect our values. And for the most part, we've seen that the party has tried to push out the folks that are speaking to these values. And so to have an opportunity to go both ways is going to be incredible. So that's going to be in March ish, is going to be the
Yeah.
caucus process, but June is going to be the primary where folks get to vote and decide whether or not they're willing to put up with another 30 years of the same old, or if they're ready for a change.
And for those ready for a change, in addition to donating, how else can folks get involved and how else can they support your campaign?
Yeah, if folks could go to kirosforco.com, that's KIROSFORCO.com. That's where you can sign up to volunteer and join our Discord. So we have a Discord where folks can chat, talk about some of the issues that they're concerned about, talk about events that are happening, mutual aid opportunities that we have in Denver. And then that's where we share some of the volunteer opportunities that we are going to be having for folks as well. We have almost 100 volunteers signed up, which is incredibly
Amazing.
exciting. This is a
Yeah.
people powered grassroots campaign. We have 2,000 more individual donors than the incumbent does, and we're still
Wow.
6 months away from the primary. This is a campaign that has true momentum behind it. And so we're looking forward to in January. That's when we're going to really start the canvassing process as we're trying to build up the petition signing and the canvassing for the caucus as well. So that would be a massive way to help support if you're on the ground. And if you are not here in Denver or in Colorado, just supporting us digitally, sharing the social media platforms that we have. I'm on TikTok, I'm on Twitter, and I always call it Twitter. I do not call it X. And
It
I'm
is
on
now
all the
same thing. Yeah.
platforms. Exactly, yeah. But sharing is a massive thing because word of mouth is going to be really important as well to make sure that folks who have felt really disillusioned with the party, and rightfully so, can see that there are folks that are fighting to take it back to fight for our best interests. And so the social media handles are at Melat Kiros Co. And you can find me with that handle on all of our social media channels.
We've got over 260 people watching, which is awesome. If you're just tuning in, we're speaking with Melat Kiros, who's running for Congress in the first district of Colorado. Let me share another question where I know folks are going to ask. You have the primary coming up June 30th. Some folks are going to ask, well, you are a progressive, and I may align with you more, and I may not like the incumbent, but the incumbent is at least a Democrat, not a Republican. How do we know that voting for you in the primary doesn't risk this seat flipping red in November?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question because I do agree with folks. Our priority has to be to take back the House in 26, take back the Senate, and ultimately take back the House in 28, right? So, fortunately, I can share that Denver is a very, very safe blue district. We haven't had a Republican in that seat for, I don't think, for 60 years. And so, it's a very comfortably blue seat. This is akin to, AOC challenging in her district back in 2018, right? This is a blue seat no matter what. And this is a
Yeah.
question of what kind of Democrats do we have? Do we want to have in Congress? Because I remind folks all the time, right? We got to take back the House. That has to be our priority to flip these seats. But we have to be careful about which Democrats we're sending because
Yes.
we cannot deny the role that the Democratic Party has played in allowing for someone like Trump to get back into. And if we send the same old folks who are going to go back to business as usual to maintain the status quo, what will come after we take back power, the pendulum swinging back in that opposite direction, it will be worse than even what we're
Yes.
seeing today. And we are facing the worst of the worst right now. And so this has to be a long-term strategy of what do we want for our party? What do we want for our country? And what kind of Democrats are going to be the ones to push for that reality? And that's going to be progressives that are refusing to take the money from the corporations that got us into this mess in the first place.
What have you found to be, we're down to our last couple of minutes, and the chat is fantastic. Folks are being very kind. What have you found to be one of the most rewarding parts about this? I know there's always a lot of struggle, and feel free to talk about the struggles. I think people need to hear the raw, unfiltered struggles as well. But let's make that the question. What is the one big struggle that you're going through that folks can help with or that you just want to share? And what's been the most rewarding part about running for Congress that maybe you didn't expect?
Yeah. The struggle, unfortunately, is of course related to the fundraising. And as someone who is vehemently talking about the issue of money in politics, it's incredibly jarring and humbling to still ask for the money to help support a campaign. But, having been on this side of things and understanding that there's a reason why corporations and billionaires spend so much money on campaigns, right? It's because it works. It buys you the mailers, it buys you the ads, it buys you the attention of the people in that district. And largely, folks are voting for the candidates that they hear from and see of the most. And so, trying to navigate that part has been really difficult as someone who just wants publicly financed elections, period, right?
Yes.
I sincerely believe that elections should be a battle of ideas and policies and how much integrity do you have to the things that you are saying you're going to be fighting for, as opposed to who's going to raise the most money, right? but
Yeah.
but the reality is that 84% of the people in the house have, or I'm sorry, 94% of the people in the house, they outraised their opponents. That's not a democracy, right? That's not a battle of ideas. That's just a battle of who can raise the most. And I see the pressures on candidates to chase after the wealthiest individuals, to chase after the corporate PACs, because it's just so much faster to
Yeah.
raise money that way and so much
Right.
simpler to get across to the finish line. So, really, really making sure that we are focused on the individual donors and the actual people that we are trying to represent in this district. The system's not set up to encourage that or to incentivize for that. So it has to be something that you work to do, and it has to be something you truly believe in. So I'm really lucky to have a team that believes in that same mission as well, and that's going to be been our massive priority with fundraising. And so I would encourage folks that even if it's just $1 that you can spare, that you may do it on a recurring basis. That's what
Yeah.
really makes a massive difference.
Right.
Donating that every month will be so helpful for candidates like myself. And then I'd say that the most rewarding thing, we saw in the last election how disconnected young people felt from government, how swayed they
Yeah.
were by the Trump's campaign. And we're talking about young people who sincerely believe that their future was stolen from them, right? We're talking about a generation that benefited from all of these social programs, then got of age themselves, decided they didn't want to pay the taxes, got into power and pulled that ladder up behind them and stayed in power for decades to prevent us from trying to fix this mess and to keep them to maintain the status quo. And they're constantly telling us we don't know enough, we don't
Yeah.
understand enough. Like we saw Hillary Clinton demeaning young people and saying that
Yeah.
we just don't understand foreign policy. And I think the most rewarding thing has been pulling young people back in and showing them that not only is this not hopeless, right? But that it's actually our job,
Right.
our role to get back involved and to take back our party and our country so that it actually supports, working everyday people, and that it's not just about getting by, right? It's about thriving. It's
That's
about
right.
housing that you can afford, healthcare that doesn't bankrupt you, you know, time to rest and to raise a family. These are the things that we're asking for. We're not asking to be rich and to own yachts and to do all this, that, and the third. We're just asking for dignity.
That's right.
And to see young people believing in this campaign and signing up to volunteer and saying that, they thought things were hopeless, but that there might be a chance here, that's been truly the most rewarding aspect of this.
That's amazing to hear. I love that because when you look at American history, what you find repeatedly is young people led the charge for change. Young people who were not disillusioned by around for 30 years in power and thinking that things couldn't change. They didn't worry about what wasn't possible. They worried about what is possible in the here and now, and they go after it.
Mhm.
And so I commend you, Melat, for kind of picking up that mantle and continuing to run with it. It's exciting, it's refreshing, and I really encourage everyone watching. I've put the donation link in there a bunch of times. Please donate. Several already have. Please support her on campaigns. Donna Everett says, and young people don't want to fund genocides. Exactly right. Our environment does not want all these evil data centers. Exactly. I mean, this is what we need to do. And so I commend you, Melat, for leading that charge. Before we go, can you share one more time your website and then how folks can get involved one more time?
Yeah. So social media handles are at Melat Kiros Co. I'm on every platform. Our website is kirosforco.com, KIROSFORCO.com. There's a volunteer tab with a link to the Discord as well. Sign up to volunteer. We ask what, the specific things that you want to offer because we are so grateful for your time and your expertise. And then join us in the Discord, introduce yourself, and be a part of this community and this campaign that is fighting for a better future that we deserve. And it's one that's worth fighting for.
Melat Kiros running for U.S. Congress for the Democratic nomination right now in the first district of Colorado. Check her out at Kiros for Kiros Melat, thank you for the conversation. You're welcome back at any time, and let's go out and win this thing.
Thank you, Kasim. I really appreciate it. Have a good
Yeah.
one.
Take care.